Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, guys.
Thanks. Good morning, Dr. Bala. I'll start with you, and I would like to thank Madras Management Association, and in particular, past President Mr. Balraman, for pushing me into this and make a contribution to a new generation of change leaders. So let me start with my first attempt at this one. So, like some of the previous speakers, as Ms. Ramesh also said, that most of the points probably I'm saying here are already covered, but I would like to give my personal take on this one. So, in terms of the change leaders, we are first looking at the environment. And what first comes to everybody's mind is a disruptive technology. And in the last 15 years of my career, I have been with BASF Catalyst, or previously Engelhard, which is an automotive company. And so I have to start with an automotive example of what is disruptive technology. And again, when you go into automotive, the current favorite, as Dr. Bala said, is Tesla. So I will give you an example of what kind of technology is which impressed me most. Most of you must have heard about the big news last year in terms of Volkswagen being forced to recall so many vehicles and the billions and billions of dollars that they had to take a write-off. Or in calling those cars back and fixing it and sending it back. And instantly, Tesla also had, I believe, a small issue. It's an electric car, it runs on batteries, and the batteries are mounted as close to the ground as possible. So in some of the cases, they came across an instance where there were some stones from the road which are hitting the battery compartment, which would damage the battery compartment and which could also create a safety hazard. So they were faced with the situation of recalling cars and fixing this one, but they had a very unique solution. As Dr. Bala said, that he called the phone. So they had an artificial intelligence system from where they could beam a solution to all the different cars, whereby they increase the height and increase the road clearance. So that's what they did with no cost, sitting into this thing. In half a day, they fixed the whole problem. That's an example of disruptive technology. That's what we are talking about right now. So the second one probably is the new economies and markets and the emerging markets. I think the McKinsey person covered quite a bit. So it is going to be the emerging markets of China, India, and Brazil and Russia. Probably Brazil and Russia has fallen by the wayside. Similarly, China, there are darker clouds that are looming ahead. I don't know whether government can influence anymore on the environment. They try to do their best, like you have been reading about what China has been doing for the last 6 months, but I still think it's not possible. The fourth one is probably the globalization and global workforce. As everybody knows today, the industry starts not only in India, it starts simultaneously everywhere. Like Uber started somewhere, but in no time, it was there across the world. Similarly, a startup in India probably is also looking at setting up office in San Francisco and Tokyo at the same time. So whoever is a new change leader, you have to start with the globalization and global workforce. And as my previous speaker said, in terms of corporate social responsibility and this one, unless we have a sustainable solution, I don't think the earth will support the development growth much longer. So just summarize, probably you're talking of a lot of economic uncertainties, as the previous speakers in the inaugural session said, like the oil prices down from $100 to $30 today. You have China uncertainties. Last 1.5 months have been bloodbath in the stock markets. So how do you plan? How do you run your business? And how do you lead through these turbulent times is what I'm talking about. So this probably would call for a new breed of change leaders as we move forward. So just try to define who are the change leaders here. The new generation of change leaders are those who would challenge what needs to change rather than play by what the current rules are, and or they will challenge the system and write their own rules. Like someone said that like BMW is the best way to predict the future. You create the future. So they set the rules. That's what the disruptive technologies, that's what the new changes or new change leaders are planning to do. So in the next section, I am attempting to see try to define the 5 characteristics of the change leaders. Who are the change leaders and what are the characteristics that they need to possess? So let me go. First is what I call is pushing the envelope, getting out of your comfort zone. Like I have to give a personal example. Like if I look at my father's generation, you study, then what do? You look for a government job. Safe, you are there for 30 years, then you get your pension, then nothing, that's the best you can do. Private sector, you don't even look at it. Then my generation, which is probably still 30 years, then it was go to IIT or IIM and then look for a job. Then taken care of. But today, what do you see? Even people passing out of IIT or IIM or even before passing out, they are starting their own startups. There are people, I read students who are 13 and 15 years becoming entrepreneurs. I saw Ms. Ramesh saying that she's investing in startups and encouraging startups. So the first thing for a change leader is to get out of the comfort zone and not be afraid of failure and only look for safety in whatever you do. So that's what I call pushing the envelope in the American term, or a stretch. The second one, I would this is a very, very interesting example. This is probably a Daimler ad, which I have borrowed. This is basically combination thinking. So you have been used to left brain thinking and right brain thinking. Being an engineer, we're all used to think, or being in management or manufacturing, you're always used to left brain thinking, that you say analyze the problems, identify the solution, select the best option, and then go forward. But right now, for all these new startups, you need both. The best example I can think of, what I read, is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, before he started Apple and developing the products, he spent quite a bit of time learning calligraphy. So he knew the beauty of the characters, the beauty of things, how to shape things. So when he took up Apple, what he was focusing was not only on the technical excellence of the product, but on the aesthetic beauty. The combination of the two. And he always used to say, he never used to believe in market research. So he used to say, customers don't know what they want. I have to create a product, then I have to tell them how to use it, I have to make it simple. So probably you have to need both your left and right brain thinking to develop a successful product and be a successful change leader as well. Then, third one is being member of the team, being captain and coach. That is, you can no longer be separate, that you invest the money and then somebody else runs the business. There are several startups like if you look at Bill Gates, he started working as a programmer. He developed MS-DOS for IBM. Then IBM gave it to him, then he started developing a business. And then he ran the business. So then for all these startups, you start small. So you are a part of the team. You are also being the leader. You are the coach. And you set the value systems for the new organization. So you have to walk the talk in being a successful change leader. The fourth one, I would say, is the most important thing is resilience. You are operating a new company, a new startup. You are starting with a new idea, probably a new product which many people are not familiar. So you are going to have continuous problems and challenges as you go along. You have to manage stress because you're going to have problems. You have to stand up for what you believe in, and you have to not only keep yourself motivated, but also inspire other people. And you need to have the mental toughness. And most importantly, as things are continuously evolving and changing, you need to manage change, be flexible, and be adaptable very quickly. And the last one I thought is most important is the global mindset, which is required for being a change leader. Today, you cannot operate in an environment which is isolated or which is insulated. We are in a connected workplace, so there is a 24/7 work culture that is happening. You are working with different people. Probably there are cross-functional teams. There are ideas which feed on each other. So you need to know how to deal with various people, how to deal with people across cultures, what it means, and how to stay focused. This is more important for you to develop a global mindset. So that, in brief, was my talk. So to summarize, these are some of the important qualities that we look for in a change leader. And as they say, change is difficult. It is probably change per se is not difficult, but the process of change is more difficult. But if you don't change, it's not going to get you anywhere. So not changing is fatal for you. With that, I come to the end of this thing. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping the time. I'll take 1 or 2 minutes to introduce the next speaker. Here is a student of mine from Great Lakes. I am glad you said the word global mindset. Our tagline in Great Lakes Institute of Management is global mindset, Indian roots. The Indian imagination. So, as a matter of fact, Keshav finished his MBA at Great Lakes, but all the time I was saying, Uncle, I want to come to do another MBA. And I said, wait a minute, don't need to do it. I do not know how many of you know this, folks. About 1.5 months back, MIT, not Madras Institute of Technology, the mighty Massachusetts Institute of Technology, has made an announcement, again, change, again, disruptive technology, again, disruptive business model. You can actually get an MIT degree from being in any village or any place in India or in Chennai. Do you know that? You can get an MIT degree, the same degree that you can get an engineering, MBA, whatever it is. All you have to do is take their courses, which are on online. Everything is already in the general domain, like Coursera. You can take any course you want, even 10 years, 5 years back. Now they made an announcement, if you also go with the evaluation that we want to give you, just like any other student in Cambridge, Massachusetts, you can get an MIT degree. Now, this is like, I am a big fan of Rajinikanth, obviously. This is reminding of this movie Shivaji. Perakata adrudilla. So the word MIT, if it is told right now in US, every university is shivering. Why? If they take all the population of the world for their MIT degree because they are making, what do you think they have to do? Everybody is trembling, like an earthquake tremor. That is the disruptive business models are coming. Now this guy joined and said, all right, Kellogg, go ahead. Then he went back, as I told you. Now we created a company called Globality Partners. What is globality? Can I compete with anyone in the world, from anywhere in the world, for any resource in the world? That is global. Can I compete with anyone in the world, for any resource in the world, from anywhere in the world? I said, let us do it. We created partners, and we did that. Suddenly, our main thing is mergers and acquisition. Suddenly, we saw a company called Uniplay, who wanted to find a buyer. 155 crores debt, some money, the price of the share was 6 rupees on January 18th, 2015. Now, I was looking at it, he was looking at it. I said, Keshav, do you know what I am thinking? Uncle, I am thinking the same thing. What are you thinking? Why not we buy that? Believe it or not, we bought that. We made the debt from 155 to about 50 crores. The share was 6. Within a year, the share went to 205 rupees from 6 rupees. 205 rupees. From 20 crores, I'm sorry, he's going to talk about that. How a person who was all over the place, learned everything, now converted into an action plan, walk the talk, and let us hear his story. Without much ado, let us invite Keshav to the podium.
Respected Uncle Bala, dignitaries on the dais, friends and distinguished guests in the audience, a very good morning to all of you. When requested to speak for this occasion of the MMA, I asked Uncle Bala, what should I speak about? And he said, just narrate your life story and let's draw out some parallels and see how it goes. I hope it's going to be relevant for most of you. I come from a medium-sized business family background in Chennai. Lost my dad at an early age, and then the family decided to branch into SAP in the early 90s for some reason. So most of my uncles, aunts, everybody moved to the US and New Zealand and set up the SAP practice. I grew up thinking that's where I'm going to end up being. That's all. I mean, the business started growing. We did well through the late 90s, etc. And so I finished my engineering at Anna University, went to Great Lakes, and I was ready to go back and join the family business in the US. And Uncle Bala said, hey, hold on a minute. I want you to join Infosys. It came as a shock because, they'd already lined up the projects that I was going to do, etc. But he said, there's a lot you can learn from their state-of-the-art processes and, just the way they do things in IT. I said, okay. And then, I took up a job at Infosys and worked under Mr. Mohandas Pai. Again, we co-authored a paper with Uncle Bala, and things went well there for a few years. We learned a lot about how IT systems and processes go. And then I went to the US, I think in the late part of 2007, again, started off working in Dallas with our SAP practice. Things were working well. We were doing large accounts in the utility space. And then I was talking to Uncle Bala, and he said, hey, what are you doing on the weekends? And I said, you know what, Dallas is a nice place. You go out to a shooting range, you do whatever you have to do. It's nice weather, hardly any cold, etc. He said, why don't you do the Saturday program at Kellogg? I said, well, you want me to, because this was already a hard week for me. We'd already work 80, 90 hours a week, and then to come into the weekend and start doing coursework. I said, I don't know if it can be done. He said, well, just join and see what can be done. So we took up the weekend program. So every Friday night, I'd leave from Dallas, catch a flight to Chicago, finish the coursework and come back on Sunday, and then start the week on Monday. So this kept going, and the hours kept kicking and kicking. Somewhere around mid-2008, 2009, we got a really nice offer on our SAP business from a large European company. And again, we were discussing in Chicago what we have to do, and Uncle Bala said, I think you guys should take the offer, because it was a sizable chunk of money. We said, okay, let's take up the offer, and then we came down to valuation, nitty-gritties. These were things I didn't really understand back in the day. So, I was talking to him, and he said, well, that's what investment bankers do, so maybe you should look at some investment banking as an internship. I said, okay, this was just 2 months into Kellogg, and that's when the internships start and people start coming to the campuses, etc. We went about interviewing. This was, again, I repeat, it was 2009. Not one financial firm was hiring. Bank of America's stock was at $2 a share, and things were just generally not good. But we persevered and finally managed to crack a couple of internships. Then I said, okay, fine. We basically sold the SAP business by then. Everybody had settled down, and we sort of divided the family assets and whatnot. And I decided, okay, it's time for me to, go a new path. In discussing with Uncle, we said, let's try the iBanking and PE background and see how far we can sort of go with it. We had 2 offers on the table. One was from a company called Robert Baird, which most of you might not know. They're a boutique investment bank based out of Chicago and Milwaukee. And the other was, of course, JP Morgan. Chase in New York. And again, I sat with Uncle Bala, and the decision was made to join Robert Baird. Everybody in the world thought we were nuts. Here's JP Morgan Chase, and then there's Robert Baird that nobody knows. But his point was that, I think you'll get more experience, more repetitions with deals in a smaller firm. I mean, they were not small by any means, but certainly smaller than Chase, rather than the bulge bracket investment banks. So we said, okay, and took up the job with them, did a couple of years, and then we said, hey, we have this chunk of change from the sale of the business. Let's move back to India and start acquiring a few companies. We bought a few BPOs, we bought a few KPOs, some hedge fund, sell-side research firms, etc. And we started a company called Globalization Partners. So this is sort of a key change point that happened in my life, where it said, okay, what are we doing with Globality? We took up, basically we set up partnerships in 27 countries around the world, right? People were like, why are you guys going so broad so fast? It's a high cost structure. How do you manage the show, etc. We stuck to our guns and went about it. And we realized that at the scale we were operating, there was not much maturity in the M&A markets of this scale. When a Pfizer goes in and puts a big offer on a large pharma company, it's fine, it's all clean. But when there's a $20 million hospital for sale, in Europe, the number of buyers for it drastically decreases. And then the sellers don't really know what the true valuation of their businesses are, etc. And so things went on. We did about 72, 73 deals over the course of the next 2 years. And then we finally came down to, we bought a number of those ourselves as well in the process by setting up a fund. And then we came finally to Uniplay Industries. This was last year, where they're number 3 player in India in terms of the plywood and decorative veneers and what doors sort of space. You have Greenply, you have Century, and then of course you have Uniplay. We didn't know much about the business, and it was a listed entity too, so there were a lot of learnings that we had. We just walked in and said, okay, here's the valuation. We asked the promoter, he said fine. Cut him a check, and that basically ended the deal and started a new journey after that. Since then, we've acquired a couple of small plants. We've pared down debt from 150 odd, like Uncle said, about 41 crores was yesterday's number. And the translation has come from debt to the equity section of the balance sheet, so which is why you see a larger market cap today. I just thought, given we have a limited time, I thought I'll just give you 4 or 5 things that I consider sort of important, what parallels I draw from what I've done so far. Number 1 and most important is, I think, as most of you branch out to become change leaders, is to have a mentor, right? With a guide and philosopher by your side, you'll get to your destination way faster. Just take my case, for example. Join Infosys, work with Mohan Pai, join the cohort program at Kellogg, move into the full-time program, do this internship, do that. This is something that you talk to, but basically, I don't think I'd be at the scale we're at today if it were not for Uncle Bala. So now that's key, point for all of us. Number 2 is keep an open mind and always be flexible for growth opportunities. During times such as these, where there's tumultuous change in what I call the operating ecosystem, there's a lot of gold mines that open up for potential investors. These are key moments, right? Because people are always, panic sets in, and then they don't know what happens after that. So that's where you can capitalize. You'll be seeing in the papers, hopefully in the next week or so, another large acquisition we're doing, which is a listed entity. People are asking me, are you crazy? It's got 250 crores of debt. Why would you consider an acquisition at such times? But we'll see. I think time will tell if our thesis is right. So again, number 3, I'd say, you're always going to hear the word no, but Uncle Bala always said no means not over. So that's the full form of the word. And not over means keep pushing at it. Because I've heard, the number of times people have turned down proposals, acquisition ideas, structured finance, debt, no, 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 no. It's become part of the game. So don't get disappointed. Don't stop at your first attempt. Keep pushing forward. The envelope will move, certainly, right? It's a matter of time. And it's not sort of rational in terms of the speed of movement of the envelope and the time it takes to move. At some time, it'll start ticking a lot faster. Finally, I'd say stay true to your value system and remember those that have helped you, and always give back to society. Because as you sort of scale and things get over your head, it's very easy to be brash and arrogant, but it's very few that stay the opposite direction. So with these sort of short takeaways, I'll end my speech. I think we'll open up to Q&A because Uncle was pushing on time. But again, thanks to the MMA for the opportunity, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, Keshav. Before we open up the questions, I want to make one or two comments, and then we'll over. Whatever you do, folks, just like this energy, another thing is ego. I always say, if your ego is bigger than your logo, then you go. Think about it. If your ego is bigger than your logo, somebody thinks, I am bigger than the company. Give me a break. You are nobody. So do not underestimate your company and your fellow people, and definitely the competition. And therefore, surrender your ego and succeed with your logo. Number two, in the long run, I go, you go, why ego in between? Again, this is a if we just do away with this ego, then you can succeed and succeed with integrity, and you can achieve and achieve with humility. And keep that with passion and compassion, and with this mobility, with nobility, succeeding with integrity and achieving with humility. Sky is the limit. Nobody can stop, even at the age 80, I can tell you right now. So with that, I am open. So what we are going to do is, I heard that there are some statements with your questions. I am willing to talk about it. In case you have already specified to whom the question is there, I will generally put it to the panel, and then let us have some good time. So let us start with the questions. What, Group Captain, what is the procedure you are wanting to do? Or you want to allow the person to come? All right, if that is the case, I think there must be some mics here. You can come to the front, give your name, and ask the question. Please be brief, that's all. Any questions? I believe you have question slips. Please write it and give it to us. But meanwhile, why waste time? Anybody has a question, come to the front. I can listen, if you do not have a mic, and repeat the question on behalf of you, and then we'll go while you are writing the questions. Let us keep moving. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I've posted my question on the slip, and my question for today is that I'm sure that there are a lot of change alternatives. I mean, we all want to change, and there are various alternatives to change. I mean, you would want to change in one way, whereas people would advise and even suggest, like how you advised sir or that you should take another option. I'm sure for even to change, there are various options for change. But how would you evaluate, or how would you go about which change would be the best? I mean, there are situations where change, we know that we need to change, but we do not know which change would be the best.
Yeah, we got it, sir. Please brief with your question. Anybody want to take it? Vaidyanathan probably may be more mature because he also went through this change. Go ahead, sir. Is there you want to come here, or can we give one mic to the phone panel? While it is going on, I tell you what, change is inevitable, right? Uncertainties are inevitable. If uncertainties are inevitable, worrying is optional. And therefore, panicking is pathetic. So planning is paramount. With that, over to you.
No, the only thing is, you have to go after your passion. If you believe very strongly in something, then you have to pursue. Like I have a classmate of mine who did with me engineering, and then he did his doctorate in economics. Do you know what he is today? He is a leading neonatal surgeon in the US. So you talk of change, the kind of change he has gone through is amazing. So my only advice is that you have to believe in what you want to be and pursue it with all passion. And then you will get what you want. Probably there will be difficulties, there will be problems, there will be issues, but then that cannot deter you if your calling is true.
Is your name Hammond, sir, the question who asked the question? Is it Hammond? So I think I saw your paper also. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. Do anybody else want to add anything to that question? All right. The next question, Dr. Bala. What is the next evolution step after Uberization of services? This is Sriram Apollo Hospital. Sir, since your hospitals, let me tell you the following. I am currently involved with the following. All the fantastic physicians in many of the US US cities, live in the suburbs. Very nice buildings, very nice places, wonderful scenery, swimming pool, etc., etc. Unfortunately, all the hospitals are in the city. So these fellows were always driving from their home to the city, whether it is Chicago, Houston, some of my family members are there. And they are stuck in the traffic, in the car, even though there is a Bluetooth for 1.5 hours. So what we have decided is essentially similar to this. Can I utilize the 1.5 hour time in the car one way? That means 3 hours I have. These doctors are so important and so experienced and so knowledgeable. If you want to have an appointment, you have to wait 3-4 months even, at least 5 days. And your cancer is spreading and you need a second opinion. So now what I did was essentially collected all these people who are living in every city, created a site of database, and their talent, their specialization, their experience, and the rating, so a rating agency. Now anybody can, and I got their cell phone, so now we channel the query from anybody to have an advice for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the doctor makes money, the patient is so happy, or the client is so happy. So what is this stuff? Essentially utilizing the excess capacity. Here is a supply of fantastic people